Mm-hmm. All right, there we go.
Yes.
Hey, Amy, how are you?
Hi, Shane. Good.
Awesome,
Good.
awesome.
So you are in South Carolina and I'm in North Carolina. And is it as pretty there as it is here?
It's absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's just a
Right?
picture perfect kind of day. Leaves are just bright and pretty. Still some on the trees,
Hmm.
Crystal blue sky. It's just beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like
Well,
75 degrees. It's just
yeah,
great.
I know. I know. Now I did hear it's going to get real cold real
Yeah, it's
soon.
coming. It's coming. Yeah, for sure.
um,
I'm now I know the answer to this, so I'm just going to ask it so you can tell everybody else. Are you a fan of cold weather? You like cold weather?
well, I do like coldish weather. I like it, I like late fallish.
Hmm.
I'll even take a little snow, but then the sun comes out.
Quickly come out. I'm not a fan of frigid cold.
No.
I like it to be chilly, but not
Mhm.
cold. Chilly, but not cold.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way
Yeah.
to say it. Yeah,
Yeah. I'm
just chill,
I'm
just chill.
kind of the same way. Chilly
Yeah,
but
right
not
on.
cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um so I am so excited and a little nervous to be
Mm,
talking about something we're going to talk about today because it's kind of very personal.
mm,
I know for me, the process that has kept me from being burnt out is something that is very personal to me. It's
mm.
something that I don't really talk about with a lot of people. I only recently, when was it? Maybe last year? Was it last year or early or late 2019? I even started talking to you about it.
I think it was late 2019.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I really, because it's so intimate to me, this process is something I hold very, very not really sacred, but I hold in high value. It's a high priority. And it's very interesting because
Mm,
so many people but specifically owners or leaders, especially in the climate we're living in today, I think there is this feeling of if I downshift my focus for even a few hours, if I
mm,
downshift the
mhm,
speed of the work for even a few
mm.
hours, something is going to come in and it's either going to take away my steam, I'm going to lose credibility, or I'm not going to be able to keep up. Does any of this resonate with especially some of your clients that you're talking to?
Totally. I just wrote that
Mhm.
down. The fear of the downshift. Like that's
Mhm.
what I hear my clients saying are things like this. Like, I'm so concerned about overwhelming my team. I'm concerned about burning out myself. But
Mhm.
and then now they tell me everything that's true. And it's just what you said. They have a great concern about falling behind. They have a great concern about
Mhm.
missing out. They have great concerns about what will be the perception of,
Mhm.
whatever in their industry if they actually were to
Mhm.
downshift a little bit. Yeah, I hear it. I
Yeah.
felt this before. Like I've
Yeah.
been in that spot where I know I need to downshift, but there's
Mhm.
that there's a big old but that just kind of followed it for me.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and do you remember when you would like take days off of work and it was spent, you might have been with people you love and you might have been doing some recreational activities. You were also like trying to do all the stuff that needed to be done all in
Mm,
one day.
mhm.
And then like the next day would come and there was just this exhaustion. Like I didn't really
Yeah.
get a day off. Did you have that? Because I did. I was
Yeah, totally.
constantly
Totally.
exhausted.
Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
Yeah, I thought I would take a
Yeah.
day off to catch up. Like, that was my thing. I'm gonna take a day off, I'm gonna catch up. Like, I'm gonna catch up on
Yeah.
things I need to do, and the
Yeah.
idea of it was refreshing. Doing it
Mhm.
wasn't so much. I was
Yeah.
just I began to dread going back,
Right.
late midday, 4 or 5 o'clock on that day I took off, and, like, I did not get what I was hopeful that I would get from
Mm-mm.
this day. Yeah.
Mm-mm. I know. And there's actually a reason for that.
Mm,
It's really interesting. So back in 2013, this woman wrote an article in the New York Times, and her name is I cannot pronounce her last
mm.
name, but her first name is Judith. Um, and it's a very powerful article, and she talked about how there was this disciple of Freud's. His first name was Do you know how to pronounce his last name?
I do not.
Ferenzi?
I do not. I'd go with that. That sounds perfect.
Yeah, it's very pretty. It's very Italian and beautiful.
Yeah.
And he says that he discovered something called Sunday neurosis. Now, the Sunday neurotic, he said, developed a headache or a stomach ache or an attack of depression after ruling out purely physiological causes, including the rich food that most of us eat on our days off or at this time on Sunday dinners. What he said that he figured out what was bothering his patients was that they were suffering from the Sabbath. So they were taking a day off from work, but they weren't really resting. Now, it's interesting because during the time that this guy was alive, there had actually been pre-imposed a day of rest called the Sabbath. They actually observed it as an all present day civilized humanity. Okay. And it became, right? Well, it sounds like it would be a good day, but here's what actually is documented about the all present day civilized humanity is that it became a thing to be just hated. Like it was drudgery to the people of the civilization because they were forced to be with family. They were forced to have family gatherings. They were forced into recreation. And occasionally there was some worship that happened. So they had this fear of speaking out to the government against this holiday or not participating in it because they would be rejected. And all of this is documented. You can go look this up. So people began to censor their real desires. Well, guess what their real desire was, Shane?
What was it?
Very simple. Rest. So basically what these people were saying is you're pre-imposing how I should rest.
Got it. So in other words, became unrestful. It's like, all these, there's just more stuff to do.
Exactly.
More requirements, more demands, more.
Yes. Yes. And I know, for me, I grew up in a faith-based household. And so on Saturdays, on my parents' day off, we were catching up and doing, running, laundry, groceries, chores. Eventually things would quiet down later in the day, but we would surely find something to get into. Right. So it was like pizza and movie night, or let's go bowling, or we were just going all day. And then Sunday came, and that was the Lord's Day. And we were supposed to go to church, work at church, come home, and then everybody just ate a really heavy meal, and we just kind of all separated.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Only to wake up on Monday and feel like there had been no rest, no time off. And so this is how I grew up. So I grew up with this idea that, well, if I just eliminate all the activity that wore me out, then my day off will be awesome. I'll be restful. Well, so then the counter behavior of that as I got older, especially as a young woman, I worked in very high pressure jobs. The reality is that how I rested was I binged. So I binged all the stuff that I had kept away from myself all week so I could focus. And I binged, I overslept, I binged entertainment. And I just binged like full on laziness. Well, guess what? I would wake up the next day feeling just like I did as a kid. So I was like, okay, well, then what is it? What is missing here? And what I found was as I would inch up to every day off, and my days off in my career were sporadic. I didn't have set days off. And so, but I would feel this anxiety, like, what am I going to do so I don't get to the end of the week or the end of the day off and feel like a garbage pail kid? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, you remember those garbage pail kid pictures? Like, they're just like, and they just look disgusting. Like, that is how
you feel.
Felt.
Yeah.
My brain, my emotions, because as soon as I would binge, I would be watching something that wasn't really helping my brain rest. And suddenly something would trigger a past experience that would bring about anxiety. And so then to calm that anxiety, I would binge something else. It was just this awful cycle. And then I thought, well, maybe I do need to reinstitute the rules of my childhood back on those days so I don't feel this way. That didn't work either. So it was interesting because the one part of a restful day that I had never even considered was things that I never have done before. And so as soon as I started to implement those, and we will talk about exactly how we rest and avoid burnout, because now, I mean, I've avoided burnout for 15 years, just practicing what we're going to talk about here. And I know you've had a massive shift in your own ability to focus and maintain capacity and even grow capacity for more business, more time with family, more impact, more income. Like all of the things are tied to what we're going to talk about here. Don't you agree?
I agree. Yeah. And I think it's a bit of an oxymoron. But we're in essence going to tell you less is more. Yeah. Like by reducing effort, you will multiply your impact. It is like, it's crazy. An oxymoron. It's just an oxymoron. Yeah. You know, Amy, I grew up the opposite. There was always activity. Like Saturday, it was ball games. Sunday, it was just always activity. Yeah. So then I got into a startup as a very young leader, 27, 28 years old. And I remember a person that was in that group who was leading this startup telling me one day we'll be able to pause and reflect, but that's not today. Like there was always this, hey, there is more. So I got into this rhythm of just like more. And what I discovered was the deeper I went into more, the more there was to do. And I know people who are watching this can relate because there is enough to do within your business to keep you going 24 hours a day as far as your activity goes. Yeah. But that does not equate to increasing levels of productivity. And that's where this oxymoron comes in to turn everything around. Less truly is more. We're going to show you how.
Yeah. So I'm going to say this. So Judith, in this New York Times piece that she did from 2013, she says that you cannot downshift casually and easily the way you might slip into bed at the end of a long day. As the Cat in the Hat says, it is fun to have fun, but you have to know how. This is a powerful, powerful quote. I even remember, and you and I have this mentor in common, John Maxwell. I remember reading something or being at one of his conferences as a very young executive. He was kind of like my introduction to leadership growth and that kind of thing. And I remember him saying, you should plan your day off just like you plan your work days, but there really wasn't any practical application. I didn't know how to do that. Right. And so basically what we're essentially creating is a day of organized unproductivity. Now this is completely counterintuitive, isn't it?
Big time. Organized unproductivity. What a great phrase.
Yes. And so what we do is we basically prepare to not produce. This is what we're going to do. We work and we focus 7 days of the week so that on a seventh day or the day of our choosing, we are prepared to not produce. So where does this idea come from? Well, most people have heard, no matter what their religious observation is, they've heard of the word Sabbath. And I think that even as a kid, I grew up and just thought the Sabbath meant something religious. I didn't really understand it, but it just simply means rest. That's what it means. It doesn't mean Saturday. It's not just for our Jewish friends. It is for humanity. And how do I know this? Because when I read this word create, okay, we actually have been given the power to create our environment, to create the life that we live. We've been given that because this great book tells us that we've been given the power to create wealth and add, and the Lord will add no trouble to it. Okay. So if we think about that, and if you are in the process of owning anything, you're creating something. So what happens is that there has to come a time where we step back and we say, okay, let me really observe what I've created. And where does that practice come from? Well, it comes from the creator himself. And I don't believe that our world and planet just boom appeared. I believe it was methodically and carefully planned out. And how do I know that? Because if you look at what was created, Shane, and the process in which it was created, first of all, it was careful, it was attended to, and it was done with a disciplined evolution. So there was a day one, we're going to create this because day two needs it to work. On day two, we're going to create this because day three needs it. It wasn't like he couldn't create it all in a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am kind of situation, but he was showing us what the process of creating looks like.
Yeah.
The process of working looks like. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Logical, orderly progression. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And then what I think is interesting is the very last day he creates humanity, and the next day it says he rested, but he was a being. He wasn't a human. He didn't need rest like we did. So I really believe he was demonstrating to me, you are a human. So the next thing that happens is you rest. You've got to have a day of rest. And on that day of rest, he stopped and he looked and he stopped creating and he looked and said, it is good. And only when we stop creating can what we created become meaningful to us.
That's good. That's good.
Right?
I'm just thinking back to the times where I haven't practiced this rhythm well. And I never had a true satisfaction for my work. I was always chasing satisfaction in my work, if that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I would say for me, the reason why I was always chasing the process of performance is because I was not altogether satisfied. There were parts of me that were undone, that were, my identity was wrapped up in how good I could perform.
Yeah, right on. I've been there for sure.
Right.
Yeah. People saying, way to go, Amy. Amy's so good. Yeah, that's same. Same. Yeah. And you always like, hey, I get more of that. I get more of that. Yeah.
Yes. You know, it's like these leaders that have boundaries in corporate America and say, you know what, I'm not going to respond to your emails on my day off. Like they're an anomaly. Like people are like, what?
They are. Even more so, I'm not going to send you any emails on your day off.
That's right. Oh, that's so true. Right. But Shane, I mean, honestly, and would you agree with this, that only when we are all together satisfied with our performance can we put the performance down?
Yes. Otherwise, you just live in this constant chasing of that.
Yeah.
It is good. It is a good moment. You just live in that. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And it's so good that if I don't keep this momentum now and I don't do all the good things now, I'll never finish the good things. And we're not just talking about like ceremonial and worship regulations. Okay. We're not talking about, there was a time where there was a lot of rules around this principle we are talking about, which is a day of rest. What we are talking about is an inner and outer focus on remembering where we came from, who we really are, slowing down long enough to say, okay, I am not what I produced. I am still a good leader, even if I botch up this deal with this client. Nonetheless, I'm still a good leader, right?
Yes.
I'm still valuable, even if I make someone mad,
Mm-hmm.
or I drop the
Drop the
ball,
ball. I was
or
just thinking that. Yeah. Yeah.
right.
Whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
There is this attachment to things, to activity, to performance that we get a lot of our identity from if we're not intentional. You know, if we're not quick to realize I am not those things. You know, my behavior is not a definitive answer of who I am. Yeah.
That's right. And I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to have to watch this movie again, but Chariots of Fire,
Okay.
that's probably one of the clearest examples of what we're talking about when it comes to identity, because at the very core of being able to stop performing is that our identity is not wrapped up in the performance. When our identity is what we are producing, we can never fully rest. I mean, do you agree with that?
So I just want you to say that when our identity is what we are producing, then we can't truly rest.
No,
because we always, boy, that's really big. That's really big. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that. If you're always producing the identity, then naturally you won't want to step away and rest.
No, you won't. And there's one of the guys in this movie, there's these two guys and this one guy that is just determined to win the gold. And he actually does. This is what he says, to win that gold medal was really for me to justify my existence, but will it?
Yeah. What's next after that gold medal? You got to do it again. You got to do it again.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you see this progression where he actually comes to realize, man, I cannot be justified through my production, my work, my outcomes alone. And if we're really honest, and if we're really, really honest here, this practice of a day of rest requires risk, because you have to fully say, I just have to trust that what has to happen on the days that I'm not resting is going to happen.
Yeah.
And push back on the feeling of I have to do this now, or I'm going to forget. So you just write it down and then push it away. Like it requires a discipline that is beyond anything. It requires a shift in our identity in order to really rest well. I'm going to give you these couple of things that I've experienced. It requires us to re-examine where we place value on our identity. We have to change how we value ourselves and what we're using to measure that value. We have to really change that. And the second thing is we have to understand that a day of rest requires the highest level of discipline. So what do I mean by that? Well,
another oxymoron. That's just blows me away.
Yeah. What I mean is that there has to be this expectation that when I get to this day of rest, there's going to be some things that I do that cannot be compromised. So, and we're going to talk about what those few things are, because this idea of a restful practice of discipline is beyond our understanding until you have experienced it. And then your feedback to us will be very, very powerful to us. And if you are practicing a day of thoughtful, intentional, organized unproductivity that is restful to you, then what we want to know from you, please put it in the comments below. We would love to know what has been the results of organized unproductivity and restful discipline, right? Does that make sense, Shane?
It does. Yeah. I'm thinking back to this idea of organized unproductivity. Before I instituted the principle that you're talking about here today, I would go into a day off unplanned.
Yeah.
And there would be this endless search of stuff to do. Like I had no idea. And that was part of the exhaustion was in this search of stuff to do. You know, it was like, yeah, I still just cannot get over the oxymoron of planned unproductivity. That's so good. And that's where the discipline is required, because there's a lot that we could do. There's a lot that we could do.
Well, and the reality is that, and I think you said this really well. You said, look, that the idea of disciplining ourselves to rest and how we rest, it also serves the other 6 days. Like, you cannot be disciplined in one area and that discipline, you not be agitated by the undiscipline in other areas.
Yes. Yeah. There's a course correction.
Yes, there is. And it really is this evolution of discipline. Like, okay, every day, those 6 days, I am hyper focused on what needs to happen, not all the things, the most valuable things that need to happen. So when I get to my day of rest, I am not bombarded by ideas of things that I left undone that were the highest value, because I was piddling in undisciplined behavior.
That's right. Yeah. Discipline forces prioritization. And that prioritization is what creates the freedom to step into rest on that one day. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's the byproduct of that also is increasing levels of productivity those 6 days a week, right? Like that's the, you know, I can't tell you the number of hours that I would waste in a day back in my corporate life of just fiddling with stuff, email, spreadsheets, browsing, blah, 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 just piddling, like terrible uses of time that I just missed because I didn't have this rhythm of discipline that forced me to be productive in new ways for first 6 days so I could truly step back on that 7th day. Yeah.
Well, and you know, for me, what was in the back of my mind when I was piddling around at work is I could do this in my pajamas watching something later or on my day off.
Yes.
Because that's what I would revert to is eventually probably around 1:00 when this something doesn't feel right.
Yes.
Pull out the laptop, still in my jammy pants, and
let me see what all is going on in the spreadsheet
junk
here.
Food, or coffee or something at 1:00 in the afternoon, and let's start. And it's 8:00 at night. The sun's going down. I'm now ordering in for the 3rd time, and I have not at all rested.
Yeah.
This was my routine.
Budget's out of whack. Your health is out of whack. Your emotions are all over the place. Yeah.
That's
all
right.
And all in the name of rest.
That's right. All in the name of a day off.
How about that? Yep.
Yeah. And it almost became like prideful to say, I still work at home. I take my work home with me. I mean, it is very egotistical if we're really honest.
Yeah. It felt like you were more important. I did.
Yeah.
I felt like I was more.
Oh, of course. Yes.
Gotta look over these spreadsheets this weekend. Like, good grief.
Yeah. I earned my paycheck. I don't know what you're doing over there, taking a day off and not responding to my emails at 12 p.m. at night, like our AM, 12 a.m. I don't understand what you're doing. So let's talk about exactly what some practical ways we can really plan for organized unproductivity. All right. So one of the very first things that we talk about, you and I talk about, and this is something that I personally practice, and I think you have gotten better at practicing, is not planning the day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So for me, this is what happens is every other day of the week, I plan the day, right? And on my day of rest, I still wake up at the same time because my body does that. I still have that first morning real connecting time that's very quiet and introspective. But now there's a lingering because I don't know what I'm going to go to next. Right. So it's a centering my identity back on what I know to be true. So as the day lingers and the temptation to go place value on myself somewhere else, like doing the laundry or, making the bed or whatever. So if somebody pops over, I look like I'm awesome,
Yeah.
then I remember who I am, whose I am, where I came from, right? Because that's where my worth lies, not in if the bed is made or not.
Right.
Because one day it did. In the past, these things mattered in my world. And so not having planned time is very important. So how do you untangle yourself from planning, Shane?
Yeah. So I think that lingering is such a good word. So I have no agenda. I don't have a set of chores that I've got a to-do list that I'm going to knock out on that particular day. But the rhythm is the same as far as intentionally grounding myself early. So I wake up and there's some interaction I have over scripture from the Christian Bible. And that does help me recenter, where my worth and value is from. But then through that, now I'm able to filter the rest of the day through that lens. So I can look for opportunity. Where is opportunity for me to be restored? Where's opportunity for me to be renewed? Where's opportunity for me to reflect? So I start with that filter, but then I also think for me, there's a renewal that comes from engaging with the outdoors. Now, some days that might look like me going fishing. Some days it might look like me going hunting. Other days, and I love this, I know other people are like, that's renewing, that's restorative. I love to pull weeds. I just love to get in the yard and pull weeds or to cut the grass, because when I'm out there, I believe that creation is a reflection of the creator. So when I see that beauty, it's a representation of a higher beauty that is sending love directly to my heart on a continuous basis, that I'm the only one who can cut that off. Yeah. And so in that time of reflection, it just reconnects me to that. And that's an identity security for me that is unshakable, unchangeable, immovable, Yeah. So that's one of the ways that I practically do it. I love just laying around. Because I don't lay around. My wife will tell you, she would tell me, she's like, do you ever stop? Like she said this to me before I started this, do you ever stop? I'm like, I don't think so. Nope, I don't. But now I'll just linger. I'll lay on the couch. We just hang, together. And I think, part of the rest and the restoring for me is proximity with my wife. She's away. She teaches, from, it seems like, when the sun goes up to when the sun goes down. But then on this day, we're just able to be just together, and, we sometimes do some funny little outings or some things like that, but it's for the purpose of reconnecting and restoring with each other. So that's another way that we do that, is just being together. Yes. We don't have a plan of like, okay, today we're going to, whatever. Right. No, it's like, you want some ice cream? A little Ben and Jerry's?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, who knows?
And which is really one of the second ways that we plan for this unorganized productivity by unplanning is we know that part of this day, there's going to be times of contemplation, right? And for you and I, we do that first alone by really centering our identity rooted in who does our creator say we are? What does the Christian Bible say about me? Okay. Now, I know for me and my family, we take that a step further and we have times of contemplation together. So we sit, we typically prepare our meals in advance. So this is something that is not restorative to us, is the cooking and the cleaning.
Okay. Yeah.
So we either prepare the meals in advance or we prepare who else is going to prepare the meals in advance for us and have them delivered. And so we are very careful about doing nothing that is work like the previous days. And something that we really focus on in the contemplation is sitting in a different part of the house than we ever sit in together. We read the Christian Bible together, and then we reflect around the dinner table, we reflect during times of recreation, whether we're playing a puzzle or we're swinging in the backyard. We reflect on, hey, so what did you talk to our creator about, and did it happen? Or what parts of the week were hard for you, and how did you handle that? Right. So we are looking back, and we are saying, where did this creator show himself throughout the week? And we're talking about it. Our 6-year-old is saying, Mom, where did you see, your prayers answered? I saw mine answered when I asked for this happened. I needed help with this friend, and I actually did this when this friend did this to me. I mean, she's very engaged. Even Abigail, who would not sit, who is our 4-year-old that lives with Down syndrome, but socially, and her ability to sit for long periods of time can be a challenge sometimes. And she will even sit with us and hold our hand, and we'll listen to the stories, and we read stories that we normally would not read, that remind us again of where we come from. So I've done this privately. Now I'm doing it as a family. And so I heard you say that even part of your day of rest is contemplative. Yes. Do you and Reese practice that together on that day off, or when Levi comes home, do you do that together as a family?
So there will be times, and again, for us, with an empty nest and with an adult child now, for us, we have these contemplative conversations together, but they're not in a planned, more formalized type of a way. Reese loves listening to podcasts of teachers who are coming at, this idea of Sabbath the way in which you and I come from, a biblical perspective. And so we'll have conversations around that, reflective conversations on specific teachings. So for us, the restoration is rooted in our identity that is directly attached to who we know our Creator to be. Then from that, we both know that we share in that identity, and there naturally is the conversation that begins to ebb and flow around that on our Sabbath, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it does. And another component, the third component that we practice in preparing for organized unproductivity and disciplined rest is the whole family. Just like right now, it's just you and Reese, the whole family is involved. So we are making sure all week we're doing our little chores throughout the week. So on that day, the house isn't so disgusting, we're tempted to have to do the chores, or the yard must be cut because it was cut a month ago and we just haven't stayed up on it. So again, that discipline shows up everywhere, which allows us to always have a clean house, always have the yard done, always have the projects done. So by the time we get to the day of rest, we are not consumed with what is not being done, which allows us to focus on each other. So that's really the third component here, is a day of rest must include intentional quality time with your family, even if it is laying on the couch and watching a movie. There needs to be some time. I even had a friend share this with me recently, and I think it is brilliant, and I'm going to start to do it. She has 4 children. I only have 2, but my youngest requires much more attention. Still, she's 4, but she still requires a lot of attention like an infant sometimes. And so I have to be very careful about my focused attention on my 6-year-old. And she said, one thing I do with 4 children is I will purposely make something that they really like, and I will call them to my bedroom, and I will just sit on the bed, and we will eat what they love or have a cup of tea together. And I will just let them talk to me privately, just laying on the bed, cuddling each other, touching each. And I was like, that is going to be a part of my Sabbath with my 6-year-old. I am going to intentionally make that. She will not know it's intentional, but I will say in my mind, I want to spend just a few minutes with her alone. So that family time, and I do the same thing with my husband. We have a time of just where we kind of retreat for a little while. The girls are playing quietly and we are reconnecting. And these are things that are we might even as a family go and enjoy something that requires somebody else to do it for us that we normally would not do, which we will talk about. That's the 4th thing that we talk about. But I heard you say that you and Reese intentionally plan to spend that time together.
We do. And if our son is with us, he loves to cook. Like, it brings him such joy.
Yes.
And the way he cooks is not the way we cook. Like, he cooks with ingredients. I cook with whatever the thing is. Chicken, broccoli, done. Like, he is making stuff. So we will enjoy just that time. You know, we've moved now with him being an adult. Now we have that connection time over his love and passion. And that's a treat for us because we don't cook like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's the point. You know, one of the fourth thing I would add here to have the fourth ingredient of an disciplined rest that will help you avoid burnout is do something you normally would not do. Like, for me, being outdoors is not something I normally do. So on my day of rest, I might take a leisure walk with my family through the neighborhood. I might go sit on the swing set and just have the girls swing, right? And we take out all of the things that we normally do for entertainment out of our routine on that day of rest. And we only do things that we normally would not do. We normally don't just sit down and do puzzles together, but we will do that on our day of rest. We don't normally get out and go to the park. Right. So we will do that. And there are some times that the activity is more strenuous, but it is exciting and energizing because it's not something we do any other time or on vacation. Like, these are very intent, and they don't have to cost money. You know, for many, many years, it was just me and the girls sitting on the floor, building Legos and talking about these higher things, these very identity driven ideas, and talking about stories and playing imagination and just being together. There's also naps, right? Like, if you don't normally take a nap, right? Like, Shane does not normally live in his jammy pants, but every once in a while he just stays in those things, which I'm so proud of you.
It's so great. There'll be times where Reese and I will look at each other and be like, it is 6:00 and we still got our jammies on. Like, yes we do. Better go take a shower and put a new pair on.
That's right.
Time to go to bed.
That's it.
Oh, man.
And I have to say that as we are wrapping this up, is that I do not believe, as a former chief executive officer, as a former VP, Shane, you were a VP, this is my third business I've owned. You're also an owner. I have, hundreds of owners that I've worked with over the years. Very big companies, very small companies, nonprofits, for-profits. And here is what I know, is that if you believe that you can have a day of rest without there being intentional reflection on who created you, and you focusing on thanking this creator for this life that you have, and stepping back and looking at what he's giving you the ability to create the other 6 days, you will still walk away from that day of rest exhausted. That's what I believe. Shane, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I think, if maybe this is new to you, you're hearing us talk it through and it sounds really strange. It's like, man, what is this? I would just say, give it a chance. Give it a chance. Test it, right? Test it.
Yep.
Test the idea that there is someone greater than you who has had a vital role in creation as a whole.
Yes.
And reflect on maybe what might that mean for you, and then allow that time that you spend reflecting to help you, experience this reality of rest, renewal, creator to creation to creation, in your relationships with others. And then just test the principle to see if it's true. Because I know if you'll test the principle, it will prove itself to be true, because it is a principle. Amy has been a model of that in my life. There are other people who've been models for that in her life. We've seen this time-tested principle prove true over and over again. So take the test, right? Spend time contemplating, what if there were a creator who created me and he was in his image, and what that might mean for you and your soul. Like there's a restoring when you practice this process that I think you'll look back and say, boy, I'm so glad I took them up on that test.
Yeah. And let us know. We would love to know your experience. Email us. I'll put our emails in the comments or drop a comment below, because here's the truth. And it truly is exactly what happens. Only when we stop creating, what we created becomes meaningful to us. And only when we stop striving can we think about why we created it. And in order for us to have more time and to make more money and to be better leaders and to produce really well, we have to slow down and really take stock of what is meaningful to us and why did we create this? What is it for? What does it mean? And that's really what happens on this day of rest, is when your brain just has the chance to go where it wants to, you really start to see what you really need and what you really want from this life. And so I can't wait to hear from you. Thank you for allowing us to have this conversation with you. And I just know that if you will just take us up, like Shane said, on this challenge, I know it will return to you more than anything else you're doing.
Right on.
So remember that systems run the business, but people run the systems. And if you're exhausted, my friends, everything comes to a stop. So go find a day of rest, start to implement these 4 things we talked about, and we will talk to you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
Once I stop the live stream.